to Sissy's Cards and Crafts. This is the first video that I have in hopefully a series of videos on cards and crafts. My name is actually Tanya, but Sissy is the name my family's always called me, so that's going to be what I'm going to go with. So I'm also a Stampin' Up demonstrator. Selling products always a good thing, but really what I want to focus on in this journey is doing things that I love. Crafting brings me joy, brings me relaxation. And to share that by sending somebody a card just seems perfect. I really feel that we need to share some love and some happy mail, as it's called in this world. So if I can spread some knowledge in how to create these cards or create other crafts and bring joy to those around you, that's wonderful, and also bring you maybe a new skill to bring you some relaxation and peace. So what I thought today is I would just kind of do an introduction to cards and stamping, because there's so many things that people terms, I guess, like with anything, there's the lingo and all of the information that you need to learn as you are learning this new skill. So I wanted to basically cover some stuff. I've got some cards here that I've got to show off that I've created. Some I've put sentiments inside. So I've got a 3D one here, a box card it's called, that opens up so it mails flat and it pops open like that. We've got some die cutting, we've got stamping. So just again some terms that you haven't heard, and I'm going to go through that. This card here I haven't quite finished, by means I haven't put a sentiment or some saying inside. But you can see I've done some embossing first off, which is texture, adding texture to the paper. I've done some stamping. I've taken some blending and ink and blended it in so you get more of a watercolor effect. So one of the videos I will probably do next is different ways to add color to things. But again, let's just start off with some basics. So the very first thing we need is paper. Now we've all seen some simple cardstock. We've all used it in school and crafts. There's different weights. This is a 65-pound cardstock. You can go up 65, 85 tends to be what people will use, and you get it in A2 size, or the 8.5 by 11 is common, or the 12 by 12. So this is just a simple piece of vanilla white cardstock. Some other cardstocks that I have here to show are, of course, the 12 by 12 ones. And I have here a pad that I purchased at Michael's. I've got actually a piece in here that I've already cut. But this is great. It is about a 67-pound cardstock. But one thing I want to point out to you is beware of the quality first off. Some cardstock, when you cut, is going to be horrible. Some will cut really nice and crisp, and that doesn't matter the weight of it. It matters more the composition of it and how it was made. And really that's kind of a trial and error thing. I can guarantee that Stampin' Up paper is really good, and you will always get that good crisp cut. It's a good quality paper. This Recollection brand's fairly good. I've had hit and miss though. Some I've just basically thrown out a whole pack of 12 by 12 because it really did not cut well. It was not a nice paper. But the other thing I want to point out is this is very nice. You've got a pad of paper here that's coordinating. We've got different colors. We've even got some golds or sparkles in there, which is really nice. But if you notice, one side is the design and one side is white. So when you're doing something like a card where you're folding it, then you're going to have your design front and back, and the inside part is going to be white, and that is just fine and dandy if that's what you want. But do note that there's different, again, qualities of paper or qualifiers of paper. You have your side that's going to have the print on it, and then some are double-sided, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. And then you've got the core, and I've seen where you get two sides of paper is colored, but then you've got that white core in the middle, which can, depending on what you're doing, it might not show up so nicely. So look at if it's a solid core or white core paper. So that's just a 12 by 12 Recollections brand. This is the Stampin' Up paper. We've got it as the neutrals pack. So there's different colors in here. Of course, I've rated it and I've used quite a bit of it already. But you get 2 colors of each, and you can get this in either an 8.5 by 11 or 12 by 12. And you'll note color both sides and all the way through. So this is a solid core paper. It is, you know, it's going to be more that 80-pound cardstock, so it's a little bit thicker. I don't know if we can kind of show the difference here. It'll pick up kind of in the shake. But you can see that this is going to shake a little bit more than this. So just to kind of give you an idea through the video as to the types of paper. The other thing I'm going to mention now, and I'll probably keep mentioning, is with Stampin' Up, everything coordinates. So you've got your inks that are going to be the same shades, the same colors. Everything will just coordinate right through to whatever you've got. So along with the coordination, I wanted to show what they refer to as DSP, or Designer Series paper. And this is a brand new pack, so I'm going to open it up. And really, it is of course about, like I say, the Stampin' Up product. It's awesome, and I will always have a link to how to actually browse, look at what they offer, and even purchase if you want. You can purchase from my online link for that. But more on the paper is it's 2-sided. So we've got double-sided. There's going to always be for the DSP, unless it's a specialized paper, you're going to have 2 sides. You get 2 sheets of each design, and it's very intricate. And this, again, will coordinate with something. So you can use it however you want, but it will have a stamp set, it will have ink, everything will match for it. So you can make really well-rounded cards. They just blend, everything looks more professional when it, of course, all matches, or coordinates rather. So this is called the Softly Stippled 12 by 12 Designer Series paper, and on the back it lists the colors that are found in this paper, so you know what to use. And we have Calypso Coral, Lost Lagoon, Pebble Path, Pool Party, and Wild Wheat. So it tells you right on the back what, and of course in the catalog, what colors will match, and then what dyes that will match with it. So again, here we go, another word that is new, so I shall put that back later. Now, they also have specialty paper, and oftentimes this isn't double-sided, so we've got a white side, but this is a very sparkly, and it's distressed oxide paper, it's called. Oh, sorry, oxidized copper, I apologize for that. And it has, so we've got like a copper color, and then this is what they call a pretty peacock green, and that will show in here just so it's not in the plastic, and you can see it a little bit more. It's got a shine to it, and it's quite nice. So there's the specialty papers as well, and you can get a shimmer paper, you can get stuff with texture, there's all sorts. And so this is another one here I'll pull out. This is what is a brush stroke specialty paper, and there's a couple different colors. You've got a blue, green, and pink, or pale pink, and there's a bit of a sheen to it. It's very lightweight, but it looks like somebody's kind of taken a brush and like a paintbrush and brushed it through. So it's kind of a little bit of a texture to it, which is nice. And that's something that you always want to make sure you're adding is texture, whether it be in some embellishment, like ribbon or like a pearlized sticker or something like that. or gem rather, or you want to do in different layers, or even that paper that looks like it's got a texture. And I'm sure when you've received cards yourself that you really can appreciate that when it has that added effect. Then there's another specialty paper that I like to use, and it's vellum. And it's almost, it feels like paper, like a copy paper weight, but it's got a see-through quality to it. So I don't know if you can kind of see my hand. Kind of like a almost rice paper sort of deal. You've all seen vellum in something or another, but it's fun to use. All right, so we've talked about some papers, and of course there's always going to be other papers that we're going to bring up and discuss, but that's going to quick recap right now. The thing we also need to think about is how we're going to cut this paper, and you'll see all sorts of paper trimmers, and of course scissors and different kinds. If you remember back in public school and you were in the office and they used that big guillotine paper cutter, maybe you have one in your workplace now. It's got that big long blade to the side, you measure and then you slice those papers. You can get a small version of them for crafting. And then most commonly you see these paper trimmers, which has an arm that's going to help hold that paper down. There's measurements along the side to show what size you're cutting, and then you get a blade. So the back side of this is a very sharp little blade, and there's a track here, and when you position your paper and slide that blade, it gives you a nice straight cut. This one has a scoring tool on it as well, and that's a dull blade, and what it does is it will allow me to score a line, so to fold that card perfectly right where I want it, and give it a good measurement and make it more precise, which is really nice. Some scores you get are just going to be like this. Some are quite narrow and you can only measure so far. This one I can measure up to 6 inches over here, or just over 15 centimeters. And it also gives me measurements over on this side as well, which as we go through some cards and you want to do some fine measuring or maybe scoring, or just you want to cut off just a little tiny bit, this side is great for measuring that. Not all cutters give you that ability, especially those guillotine ones. And some will give you that ability, but it's just very minimal, maybe an inch, or that 2 centimeters, 2.5 centimeters. It also, a lot of them will come with an arm, an extending arm. I know I've got a Recollection brand. I have a Cricut, or I've used the Cricut brand, and it has this extending arm here. That allows me to measure, this one allows me to measure up to 43 centimeters, 43.5 centimeters, or 17 inches, which is really nice. So crafting, this is really, really good. Might not need that much for a card, but you never know. And so that's really good. The other thing with this one that's really nice, and like I said, I've used a couple other ones, is this has a guide all the way here. So it's going to stop my paper. I'm not going to get it crooked. I'm going to be able to hold it right in place. And this guide goes all the way down the end. It's not just a little bit here, which I believe the Recollection one that I have is just a small little guide here. And so it depends on your paper size as to how much you can rely on that guide. So different things to look at when you're thinking about buying a paper trimmer. You also will need to replace the blades. Paper will dull blades. So these little blades, you could buy them in 2 packs. You usually will not ever have to replace the scoring one because it is just a dull blade. It's not going to worry about it. But this little cutting blade, they come out very easily and replace quite easily. So you can use that. And there's different ways of ensuring you're making your scoring blade last, or your cutting blade last longer than need be. So paper, cut, and of course you've got scissors. Fine little ones. Snips are good because you're going to do fine little cuts with cards and crafting. But of course, big scissors, big crafting scissors are going to be helpful too, but for the most part, you grab for the little snips. Okay, so we've talked about cutting and scoring, and let's just start with that. So I'm going to have this 8.5 piece by 11 card, and now I can cut it in a couple different ways. So you'll notice with this easel card, and it doesn't have to be, it could just be a narrow sideways card, that's fine, but it's half that sheet of paper this way, so I would cut it lengthways. Commonly you see these just side cards, and that is just cutting the paper halfway this way. And this is an A2 card. It's a little bit smaller. A lot of people refer to them as like an invitation size card. Of course, you can make them any size. It's just, you know, be mindful of how much paper you're using and what you're going to use it for, because you don't want to waste your paper. So I'm going to cut it this way to make a card in this fashion. And so again, this is 8.5 here by 11 inches. So I'm going to open my arm up, and I know I'm kind of upside down here. I'm going to position my paper under this arm. I'm just going to show you this way, and then of course I'll do it on the table to make sure it's done properly. And then this end I'm going to match up to that 5.5 inch mark, because that's half of 11. So I actually don't need this arm out here for that, because with this one, like I say, it does go to 6 centimeters. So it's really nice when I have that ability. For the other one, I didn't, and I was continually opening that arm. So I position it, make sure it's up against that guard, like I said, and it's nice and flat. This plastic ruler guide is down, and it has measurements all along. And then I'm just going to take my cutting blade and just push it up. And then I have 2 pieces that are equal. So I'm just going to put one aside, if I can use my fingers. Now I need to make this again in half. So this is my 8.5, and so that's going to be 4.25. But I need to score it. I don't want to cut it, so I want to make sure my cutting blade is out of the way. I'm going to put this in, and with this Stampin' Up paper trimmer, it is measured in 1/4 inches. So each line here is a 1/4 inch, which makes it really easy. Now, if you are metric, there is metric measurements. The metric, those lines, however, aren't going to be in metric, they're in inches. But there is a ruler, and let me just point that out to you in a second. So I'm just going to run this scoring blade up. There we go. And now I've got a nice little indent or line here that is going to help me score. But before I score it, I just want to show you that I've got measurements all along here. So when this comes up, like I've shown, there's all these measurements. But there's also measurements here and here. So if you are using it for metric, that's what you want. You do have some added guidelines here, and I've seen where people will use some tape or something like that to help with measurements for metric. And you can get some metric, a metric ruler, because this, metric ruler, because this is just imperial ruler, but you can add that onto or purchase that for your trimmer. Okay, so I have my score line. I want to just make sure it's folded, and I'm going to just double check that those edges are matched. And then we have something called a bone folder, and it's not really bone, it's just plastic, but it's smooth. And you know when you used to, or maybe you still do, you fold something and you use your nails to make it a nice sharp crease, but you kind of left a scratch mark. Well, this is rounded edges, so you're not going to leave the scratch mark, but you're going to get that nice crisp edge. And what it does is it just kind of breaks down the fibers so that will stay folded and won't keep popping open, just like you used to do to get that sharp edge. So I'm going to just take it and run this along just like that, and you can even do it on the other side if you want. Now this is again somewhere where you want to make sure that your paper is good quality, that you don't get it starting to rip or fray or bump, that you can get a good crisp edge. So I've got my card, It's as simple as that to make a card. I'm sure that's not a surprise to you. So how to do stuff for this card, how to make this out of it. Well, first off, this card has a piece of designer series paper that's folded. So kind of what you call a fun fold or an embellished card. It has different layers here, and that's something that's really important, I find, to give that depth. So we've got things matted. So this one has the colored inked side, and then I've put a matte under there to make that blue pop. And so it's not just something on this card, you have a matted layer, which really does make it quite fancy, I find. Just looking to see if I have a pre-cut piece. I should have thought ahead here to that, but I didn't. It's not really cut. So let's just pull one of these pieces of paper out to do a nice matted part on it. Okay, so I'm going to look at the stamps that I have here and try to get a color that's going to coordinate so I can have it, that coordination that's so handy and so lovely to do. And I just brought down a couple different inks. I didn't bring down everything, so I'm gonna just go with this. I can't think of the name of it right now. I apologize for that. My terms don't come to me as quick. So for a mat, you're just going to cut it usually 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch smaller than this size. So what I do normally is I'll just go ahead and cut it at that 5.5 and just so I can use it again. And then I'll do the other way, 4 1/4. And this is just me. Everybody will do it a little bit different. And so you see right now I have cut it that it's going to be the exact size. So, oops, maybe not. How did I manage that? Well, you know what? I've got it there at my 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to take 1/8 of an inch off. So I'm just going to come and measure on that opposite side, like I said. And there we go. So you can see now I've got it. So it's just going to be that little bit smaller and put it on top of the card. We have different tapes that we can use. So there's glue. I tend to use the glue, and as you know, just going to Dollarama or any dollar store, there's oodles of types of glue, but find a good one that's going to work really well, dry quickly. We have something called tear and tape, and it's a thin double-sided tape, which works well. There's tape runners, which are double-sided, and you're just going to run them along. Or you can use something like a foam tape, or with what we have is what we call Stampin' Dimensionals, and they are just little hexagon-sized or I don't know what shape they are there, but they're just a shaped foam dot that's going to lift that up. So I'm going to just put this on with some glue, and we're just going to glue it down. With this glue, the Tombow glue that you get through Stampin' Up, it works really, really well and dries really quickly. So I like the glue because I have a little bit of time to reposition it. So if it doesn't work, then or not laying just right, I can position it the right way. So there we go. I've got my mat ready to put something on it. So I'm going to find that other piece of white that I had here. I am organized to some degree. And we're going to talk about some stamps now for a moment. So we have two different types of stamps. Oh, right here. I'm looking for them and they're right in front of me. One is what is called the red rubber, the cling stamp, and it sounds just like what it is. It's like red rubber, and it's sticky. So first off, all of these stamps you don't use on their own. You need a block, and you have all of these acrylic blocks. So there's a whole set of them. Stampin' Up! Has assigned a letter to them. Those letters are engraved on the edge so you can see, but really you just want a block that is going to fit your stamp. So you take your red rubber stamp or your cling stamp, put it on your block. You've positioned it, they come and you put them together so you've got a sticker that you see what it is and helps you position. I find these ones are really good because you're going to get a nice fine stamp. It works really, you can get really clear stamping. And so there's all sorts of different ones here. I'm just going to use this little dragonfly, and I'm going to pull in this Moody Mauve stamp, or ink rather. So for the inks, you're just going to open them up. I just do kind of that twist and slide it over. It's normal to have this there, and there's a reason for that. When I slide it, there's a gap. It's not getting across the front. So now I have my ink pad and my stamp. What you want to do is, first off, I always give it a practice go. I don't just do my stamp right away. I want to make sure I've given it a good little practice, especially if it's new. If it's brand new, there's sometimes some oils on there, and I've seen people just do multiple stamps to get those oils off, or use their fingers, or give it a little bit of a wash, but whatever you need to, you can do that. So just a light grip, and the Stampin' Up! Blocks are good, acrylic blocks, because they give a little, there's a groove here, so it gives you a place to hold your fingers and not put your fingers into the ink. I've seen some blocks that are quite thin, and it's hard to control and keep your fingers out of the ink. So these ones are good. Just give it a nice little tap 2 or 3 times. Make sure your ink is on the block, and then just position it on your paper. Hold it for a couple seconds to allow that ink to go in, and then you've got a nice little impression on your piece of paper. To clean these, you can, normally I've got a baby wipe here or something to do that, or a napkin or something, but right now, just for safety's sake, because I forgot to bring those into the room here, I'm just going to stamp off and make sure that's fairly clean, and then I'll wash it afterwards. So close your ink back up, just like that, and away we go. Now for this, I could have another white piece of paper and do a nice front that will mat on top of here. So that is something I could do. I could put my embellish or my sentiment or something on top there and have it ready to go. I, however, like to do something that's called fussy cutting, and you just take it, it depends on what the card is I want to make, but something like this, I will just kind of fussy cut, and that's really just taking your scissors and going around and cutting out just a bit of an edge on it. Depends on how good you are at fussy cutting as to how big of that edge or white edging you want on it. And then you just do a quick little fussy cut. This is nice when you have some of that designer series paper and there's a picture on it that you like and you want to use, but you don't have a die for it. So you can just fussy cut. And then I can just put a little dimensional and pop that on my card, and you can see it there. So that's what we call fussy cutting. Very common. These little snips work best for that because you're going to move the paper rather than moving the scissors. The more snips you make, the rougher the cut. So you want to glide your paper as you're closing the scissors. That works the best. Okay, so that's our cling stamps. We also have these, oops, didn't stick very well. These photopolymer stamps, and they are see-through. I'm just trying to think of which one I want to use here. I'll use one of these. So with these photopolymers, just beware, they come nice and clear and see-through, and that's the way they're going to come. But as soon as you use red, all of their ink wears off, but red's made a different way. It has a different type of dye in it, and it's going to stain. It's not going to affect how they work, but it's going to stain it. So just be aware of that, and don't panic when you see that your dye has been stained. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull out another block to put this on, and these will stick just like the other ones. You can be very fussy about how you put them on and make sure they're straight, or you can just slap them on, put them on crooked, however you want. What matters is how that image goes on the paper. And the photopolymer ones are really good because I can see what I'm doing. So quite often you see photopolymer and they're layered. So this actually has a piece, and this is the piece that fell out, that can put black on those wheels where you can stamp right on that. You can do, it has a solid one here where I could put my color so I could match it up. So there's different reasons for having the different types. Might not be quite as fine, in my opinion, as what the cling ones are, but these ones are really nice because you can do multiple things with them. So let's make it a pretty peacock truck. So we're going to use this green color, and I'm going to give it a few little stamps, make sure all my edges are covered, and then I'm just going to position it onto my paper. And again, just hold it for a few seconds to make sure that ink goes into the paper, and then you have your truck. So that is awesome. It works really well. Like I said, I could do more things with that to color it in. So coloring it in, you have all different ways of coloring, and I am going to do a video on different ways of coloring. But first off, you've got Stampin' Up markers. So I could just take one of these markers and, just like any marker, give that a color. It's really nice because I have, these are going to coordinate with inks. So I might want to make it a little bit lighter. I might just want to shade something in, or maybe I just want to color in those wheels, something like that. It's really good. We have blends, which are alcohol markers, and you're never going to use these on your stamp, but they give a nice blend. And you can see just with these two here, first off, there's two ends because there's two different coloring ends. One is what's called a bullet point end, so it's like that little bullet point, and then the other one is a brush end, so it's more like painting. But then you get these two different shades, so I could do darker and then light and blend it. And with the alcohol markers, you don't get that little line between the two colors, which is really, really nice. So there's the alcohol markers. Then with this, you notice with the pad, ink pad, there was this lovely little splotch here. That is where I can use a pen that's our blender pens, and I can come in, and there's a special ink in here that's clear, but I can pick up that ink and color it on and give it almost a watercolor effect. So that's really nice to be able to do that. Again, we'll do a video covering all of those. But for now, I'm just going to leave this truck blank or white so you can see it. And we're going to talk about another way of cutting things out. So Stampin' Up has coordinating punches, and these punches are just like a punch. So a hole punch or something, same thing, but it's going to be in a shape, and you can see the shape here. There's multiple shapes. So this is the truck. Here's some tires, here's the windshield, and here's a hubcap. So depending on what I want to cut out, I can use. It's hard to get just the truck. It depends on how you cut your paper. Chances are you're going to cut those other parts out as well. So you might have a few little pieces come flying out. But really what you're going to do is you're going to take your paper, you're going to slide it in here and line it up. So I've got my truck lined up here with the punch, just like that. And then I'm gonna punch it out and see how I've got these added pieces that are just, I'm not gonna use, they're garbage. But I'll show you something else in a second with regards to those. So there's my little truck. I could post that right on my card as well. Okay, so fussy cutting or a punch, ways of dealing with those. So just to show you, I will use a little piece of green here. And because my truck is green, and I'm just gonna quickly cut off an end here just so I can show you something. And this little bottom part, the hubcap part, I can come down and I can just, because I made my piece of paper thin, I can just cut a couple hubcaps out. These lock as well, so they're nice and flat for storage. And there's all sorts. There's not a punch for every stamp set, but there is a lot of coordinating ones. So now I could even glue those little hubcaps right on the truck like that. So give it some added depth. Okay? Or maybe I've stamped it on the paper. I've not cut it out, but I want to add some depth, and I could add those little hubcaps. Okay, so that's a couple things that I wanted to point out. Now, the other thing is our embossing and die cutting. So we have here another set that has all of these stamps in it. Sorry, I just stuck extra in there. So we have all these cling or photopolymer stamps here. This is a Valentine set called Adorning Hearts. It's got multiple different things on here. So here we've got a bunch of stamps. It came with, or you can order, a coordinating die, and these are the dies. So what I've done is, this is just little washi tape, like kind of paper tape I've stuck on there, and that helps secure the die in place when I'm using it. So that's just kind of what you're seeing here, all these different things. But these are all our little dies. So I'm gonna pull out a couple, and let me just see what we've got here. Pull out a couple of ones that you're gonna be able to see. So this is actually a specialty one as well, because it does a couple different things, but right now I'm just gonna point out one specific feature of it. So we've got our dies, and what you want to do is get your coordinating paper, so whatever paper you're going to use, and let me just see what I've got here. Yeah, let's just use this brown here. I'm going to just quickly cut this in half so I can use it for our dies. All right. So I've got a die here, and again, die is this metal piece that's going to cut that shape out of the paper. And that's, I'm going to use for sentiment. This is a nice little heart one. It's got some little details in it. So what I'm going to do is get out, because I can't just push these down in, I need a machine. So we have what's called a Stampin' Cut Emboss machine. This is our little mini, and it opens up. There is a bigger one that does the bigger dies, but right now I'm just going to show you this little one. And I cut my paper just a little bit too thick for this, so let me just trim it down. All right, so with the machine, you're going to get different plates. Each plate is numbered. So I've got a, where's my 1? There's 2 2s, a 3, and a 4. On each plate, it tells you what to do. This is my cutting plate, or basically the one that's going to give me the pressure there. These are the cutting plates, and you'll notice they're marked up. That's completely fine. They come nice and clean and clear. You can see through them, but then they're going to get all marked up, and that's from the pressure of the dies. That's perfectly okay. So what I want to do is put that plate down. I'm going to put my paper on that, and then I'm going to position my dies. So put them there, and that's where you see I'm using this little bit of washi tape just to hold that down and hold it in place so it doesn't move around as I'm going to cut it. But you don't have to, depending on your dies, how big they are, how many you want to cut out. I could cut this whole sheet out of little ones, but I'm just going to place that there. Now I need this other one on top, so I'm going to use a number 2 on top. Again, the clear cutting plates. So I got this little sandwich of all these plates together. I pop them into our machine like that and just push in there a little bit, and then I'm going to crank this wheel. And this wheel, or this handle rather, is a wheel inside that is turning and putting pressure on those plates. And then as I cut, I get a nice die cutout here. You might need to there's little holes here that you use a tool or a bobby pin or paper clip or something to push it out. There you go. Or I've seen some people where they'll just kind of drop it and everything falls out that way. So with this die, here's the paper. I've cut out this heart, and there is all of these fine edges. So I'm just gonna poke those little pieces out that are in the middle, and then those fine little edges will pop out of the die. So you can see here it's in the die, and I'm just going to use my take your pick tool to poke through there and to release that. So there is, oops, there's another piece in there. That's a nice little fine die. So I could place that on my card. There's different ways that is fine to put glue on, and there's different ways of doing it, and throughout our time together I'll give you some hints and guidelines as to how to do that. So that's die cutting, and you get all these lovely little pieces here that are stuck on there. That's fine, you just throw them away. Okay, the other pads or plates here are for embossing, and they are going to be, just want to make sure I keep everything together here and I don't lose stuff. They're going to be for embossing certain different types of embossing folders is what I'm trying to say. Sorry that I'm struggling with that. So I brought this one down. It is a Christmas one. I apologize for that, but it's going to help me show you what it is, because I don't have too many that are this small, and I wanted to show you how it works with the 3D embossing. So I'm just gonna cut another piece of paper so you can see where we use this trimmer a lot. So these folders are a plastic folder, opens up, and there's a pattern in here. And one side is going to be like this, feels smooth, so the pattern actually is, there's grooves here that I can run my fingers down in. This is all bumped out. And when I put a piece of paper in here, and there's a line here to help match it up. So I'm gonna just make sure I've got it even. Some embossing folders, it doesn't matter if it's nice and straight. Others, you really wanna make sure they're straight. So I'm gonna sandwich that piece of paper in there, and then I'm going to use the right sandwich or the right plates. So this one is telling me that I'm going to, this is just for the embossing folder, this is for the 3D embossing folder, which means it's going to be something a little bit more in depth of a impression on my on that paper, sorry. Okay, so I have my main plate. I always use number 1. Have my embossing folder, and then I'm going to use that 3D plate on top. Make sure that this folded edge, not the opened edge, goes in first, because there's going to be a lot of pressure pushed onto that piece of paper in that embossing folder, and you don't want it to wreck your folder. So you're just going to run it through. And again, this is the mini one, so it's a nice thin, it's about 3 inches wide, and I can do lots of different ones, but not all of our folders are that small. So here we go. I've got a nice sheet. I don't know if you can see that because I unfortunately did it on white, but this now is bumped up, and I have nice snowflakes that are, there's raised portions here. This is flat, so this is embossed when it bumps up. This is debossed where it goes down. So either way, whatever you like, that could go nice on the front of a card too. Okay, so the different things to think about, die cutting and embossing, and then we can do stamping and die cutting where we're actually going to cut out. So I could take one of these hearts from here and stamp it, and then use a die and cut it out and put that on. And that looks really nice as well. Okay, so that's our mini. As I said, there is a larger version. The larger version I have is the Sizzix one, that is the one that Stampin' Up started out with. It's a good old one. It still works. You've got your handle here. It's got a larger plate. Works a little bit different, but it will do that bigger width, which is really nice. Okay, we have sentiments that we can place on our cards as well, and they come, usually a set comes with sentiments as part of it. So for this adorning hearts, we've got just for you, you are most loved, to my Valentine, celebrating you with all my heart, I adore you. Those are ones that it comes with. Trucking Along has different ones here as well, which are nice. This dog one, detailed dogwood one, doesn't have any sentiments, which is rare, but that is kind of a celebration one, so it's a little bit unique set. And then you can just get sets that have sentiments only, and this is one of the reasons I started with stamping, is because I wanted something just to give a nice sentiment, so I've collected a few of these sentiments. The other thing was that the embossing, I really, really appreciate that. So you just, same with all the other stamps, you're going to find the one you want, you put your ink on it, and you put it on your card. So we've talked about quite a few different things. The other couple things I want to point out is there are different types of ink. So we have our Stampin' Up ink, which is just coordinating colors. It is a very good quality ink. I've used other inks that just don't give you that nice, crisp ink stamp version, or picture rather, and it just doesn't look nice. It looks blobby, and it doesn't dry well, and it's all blotchy. It's not nice. Stampin' Up also has their Stampin' Dots, which are just small versions of it, same colors, and they're great. They also sell re-inkers, so when your stamp pad starts to get dry, you can just re-ink it. Then there's Versamark, which is a clear ink. It's very sticky, it takes a while to dry, and that's what we'll use for our heat embossing. So you stamp something with this ink that almost looks invisible, and then you basically take a powder, sprinkle over it, and then it heat it up, and you get, and this wasn't very clear, I did it quick, whatever you've printed on there is like that feeling of a embossed writing or embossed image, but it's kind of got that waxy feeling. I'm sure you've seen it. Oh, here's a better one. I'm sure you've seen it on cards that you've had. You run your finger over the writing and it's got kind of that waxy sort of feel. That's what heat embossing is. So we'll again cover that. So that's Versamark. There is opaque ink, which is a little bit different, and usually they don't come in a lot of colors, brown, white, black sort of deal. A pigment ink rather, and that really works well, especially like if you want a nice crisp white stamp on a dark paper. That's what you would go to. And then there's distressed oxide inks where they don't give a nice solid color. It's more of a marbly sort of color, and these work really well for doing blending and stuff like that. And so different types, but do be mindful of the ink that you get, the stamps that you get, the blocks that you get. You want things that are going to be quality, and I can attest to Stampin' Up having those. All right, so the last thing that we usually think about for a card is embellishments, and there's all sorts of ribbons, so quite unique ribbons, good quality. They're not going to fray too easily. This one is a nice wide type ribbon, which I use for a few different things. Maybe not quite the go-to one. This is a nice unique one. It's kind of got a wavy trim to it. It's actually called wavy trim. Yeah, this is what it is. It's like almost like a burlap sort of feel to it. And then just other types of ribbons here that you're gonna have that you can put on. So there's the traditional satin type ribbon, cotton ribbons, sheer ribbons, metallic, different widths and sizes. There's some really fine trims. There's wider ones like I showed you. And so there's just multiple things to, and they're always submitting different or coming out with different ones. Okay, so this is just one of the fine, more metallic ones that is quite nice to use. And so you can put it on a card, just run it across the top or the side. I've seen, or I've done rather. Where was this one card here? Like I ran this across the top. This is actually two ribbons. I used that white one that I just showed you with a teal one underneath to give you that teal color. You can use it just for little bows, or this is like a twine that's underneath here that I created a bow for that. Or you just cut a little bow, or however you want to do it. So that's good. And then there's also all of the little gems that we can put on. So there's some really sparkly ones. There's some pearlesque type ones, very fine. There is like a sequin type. There's all sorts of gems that you can put on cards. And the beauty is they all coordinate. So you're going to be able to pull in the right colors for the right card. So these, we pretty much have the same color here on these little gems. So it works very, very nice. Everything works together. So last thing I wanted to show, because we've been at this for a little while, is the catalogs. Just so you're aware, the annual catalog is the big hefty one. It's got kind of all of the go-to things in there, like your trimmer, your take your pick tool, and this just I briefly mentioned, but it's got your pointy end there so you can poke things out. It has a double end so I can push this one in, and this is more of a spatula type end, which is really good for lifting some of those, bigger gems off. And then this is a putty end. So this has got a little bit of putty in there, and that's going to help pick things up. So it just gives me something sticky to help pick it up. And so you have little pieces of paper, little gems. That works really, really well. So it's called Take Your Pick Tool. So all of those base things are in here. Your cardstock, your ink, all that you're going to find in here, as well as a lot of sets. So you can buy your die sets, your stamp sets. You can do a stamp and die set. or you can do suites, which is everything all together. So I'll show you that in a second here. So then we also have our mini catalogs. So this one is actually the main one is gonna be renewed in April. It'll be a new one. This is a January to April, so we just finished the December or the fall one where we had a mini catalog. And this is where it's more seasonal stuff. And so the mini one for, of course, the fall was a lot of Christmas stuff. This is spring, Valentine's, Easter stuff. So let me just show you what a suite is here, if I can find one. I want to find a good one here that shows me a lot of different stuff. So here, it's a Poetic Expressions Suite. So you've got dies, stamps, paper, and some sort of embellishment. And it could be one embellishment, two embellishments, so it could be ribbons and jewels. It could be a couple different types of jewels. This one has a whole bunch of sequins that comes with it. Some suites come with 2 sets of stamps and dies. So you get quite a bit of selection of things that you can put together. So they coordinate. And here, this is one of them here, this Nature Sweetness suite. So you get this paper, which is a specialty paper as well as the designer series. So there's some gold in there. You get your gems, you get some ribbon, and then you get 2 sets of stamps and dies. Now, you pay for it, there's going to be more, but it gives you right off the bat a lot to work with and to do. So that's our mini catalog, and right now until the end of February, so you've only got a few days left, is Celebration, and these are the freebies. So if you order in Canada $60 or more, you get something free. And that paper that I showed you, the designer series paper with the florals on it, came from here. So we actually have more than what's in this catalog right now. At the beginning of February, they added a few extra things. So if you're placing an order, then you're going to get, if you place $60 or more, you're going to get a flag come up saying, guess what? You earned a Celebration item. All right. So if you've stuck with me all this way and you're like, this is a lot, I can't do that, I don't know where to start, that's a lot to start with, to purchase. Stampin' Up! Does have the one-fits-all kit where everything's in here. So this is birthday card kit. You have your envelopes. You have a little Stampin' Spot. You have a block. It's a thinner block, but it is a good block. You have your stamps. You're going to have your, there's little glue, 2-sided glues. There's your gems. There is everything, and there's no dies, but they give you die cut things. So here's the card. You put it all together. It's a birthday card. You stamp on sentiment. You put your gems on. Everything's there. And then you've got an envelope to pop it into, and away you go. Right? So they have the ready-made, or the kits to put together, and they are crafting kits. There's some kits. Oh, here's a different one. So the birthday card, or birthday cake rather, right? All ready to go. You can do crafting ones. There's like a frames of some plants. There's everyday sort of cards. There's the birthday cards. There's different kits, and they're always coming out with different ones. So don't just look in the catalog, look online. So stampinup.ca, give a look. Again, my name is Tanya Hamilton. That's how you're going to find me. It is Sissy's Cards and Crafts there as well. I will link to this video my online shopping link if you want to take a look and see. And if you place an order, that would be awesome. As far as other videos I'm going to be doing, I've mentioned so much. We're going to break it down and do videos on stamping and inks. We're going to do videos on embossing, videos on all different sorts of crafting things. And even though behind me, all of these crafts that I've done, I would love to help show you how to do them yourself. So thank you for joining me, and I look forward to spending time with you again. All right, goodbye. Take care.